The morning sun peeked through the curtains of the modest apartment as Sophia Rinaldi opened her eyes. 6 months had passed since she'd traded the grandeur of international opera houses for the quiet simplicity of Millfield, a town so small it barely registered on most maps. She stretched and looked around the room. No ornate furnishings, no expensive art pieces, just the basics and a few cherished photographs hidden in a drawer. This wasn't the lifestyle the world expected from one of opera's most celebrated sopranos, but it was exactly what she needed. Sophia moved to the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared her morning tea. Her voice, even in these casual moments, carried a richness that would have made strangers stop and listen. But here in Millfield, she was just Sophia who loves music, the quiet woman who moved in last winter and kept to herself. No one knew about the standing ovations at La Scala, the encores at the Metropolitan Opera, or the critics who called her voice a once-in-a-generation gift. That was precisely how she wanted it. She hadn't planned on a complete break from performing. The exhaustion had crept up gradually. Years of rigorous schedules, international flights, demanding directors, and the constant pressure to be flawless. After collapsing from exhaustion backstage in Vienna, her doctor had been blunt. "Your body is telling you to stop. Listen to it, or next time might be worse." Sophia sipped her tea and glanced at the newspaper on her small kitchen table. A familiar restlessness was growing inside her. 6 months of rest had been healing, but music was her lifeblood. She needed it like others needed air, just not with the crushing pressure of professional performances. Her eyes caught a small advertisement in the local section. Millfield Community College seeks chorus members for Mozart's The Magic Flute production. All experience levels welcome. No audition required. Sophia's heart quickened. Mozart had always been her favorite composer, and the Magic Flute held a special place in her heart. It was the first opera she had performed professionally, though back then she was just a chorus member, not the star soprano she later became. This could be perfect, she whispered to herself. She could participate in music again without the spotlight, reconnect with a beloved piece, and perhaps even help others appreciate the beauty of opera. After all, she hadn't come to Millfield just to hide. She'd come to rediscover the joy in music that fame and pressure had slowly dimmed. That afternoon, Sophia walked the 3 blocks to the community college, a collection of brick buildings surrounding a small, well-kept quad. Students lounged on benches, absorbed in conversation or buried in textbooks. No one gave her a second glance in her simple jeans and button-up blouse, her dark hair tied back in a practical ponytail. How different from the elaborate gowns and professionally styled appearance of her stage life. She followed signs to the music building and hesitated at the door of room 103. Through the window, she could see about 20 people already gathered, their voices creating a pleasant murmur. Most appeared to be students, with a few older community members sprinkled throughout. Sophia took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The conversation didn't stop when she entered, another refreshing change from her usual experience of walking into rooms. A friendly-looking woman in her 50s approached with a clipboard and a warm smile. "Here for the chorus?" she asked. Sophia nodded, suddenly feeling unexpectedly nervous. It had been years since she'd had to introduce herself in a musical setting without everyone already knowing exactly who she was. "Wonderful. I'm Helen, the administrative assistant for the music department. We need all the voices we can get. What's your name, dear?" "Sophia. Sophia who?" She caught herself before giving her famous last name. "Who loves music." Helen chuckled. "Well, you're certainly in the right place then. Any singing experience?" Sophia bit her lip, fighting the urge to laugh at the absurdity of the question. "Some," she answered simply. "Mostly classical, actually." "Perfect. Professor Harrington will be thrilled. He's always complaining that no one appreciates the classics anymore." Helen handed her a form to fill out. "Just the basics: name, contact information, voice type if you know it." Sophia hesitated over the voice type section. As a coloratura soprano with a 3.5 octave range, she was known for her exceptional ability to hit notes that many professional singers couldn't reach. Writing that down might raise questions. She simply checked soprano and handed the form back. "Great," Helen said. "Everyone's just mingling before the professor arrives. He's running late. Typical Thomas, always caught up in some musical crisis or another." Sophia found a seat near the back of the room, content to observe. Around her, people chatted about their musical backgrounds, Two college students nearby discussed their limited experience. "I've only ever sung in church choir," the young woman said. "That's more than me," her friend replied with a laugh. "I just sing in the shower, but Professor Harrington said they needed men, so here I am." Sophia smiled to herself. There was something pure about their enthusiasm, unmarred by the competitive edge that defined professional opera. These people were here simply because they loved music or wanted to try something new. A girl with bright blue-tipped hair dropped into the chair beside Sophia. "First time with the music program?" she asked. Sophia nodded. "Is it that obvious?" "You have that new person look, slightly terrified but trying not to show it," the girl said with a grin. "I'm Lily, second-year music education student." "Sophia, new to the college, not new to music? Cool. What brings you to our humble program?" "Most adults don't voluntarily subject themselves to Professor Harrington's perfectionism." Sophia smiled. She'd worked with some of the most demanding directors in the world. How bad could this professor be? "I missed being part of a musical ensemble. Singing alone isn't the same as creating something beautiful with others." Lily's eyes lit up. "That's exactly why I want to teach music. That feeling when everyone hits their part just right and the harmony comes together, there's nothing like it." Before Sophia could respond, the door burst open, and a tall man with salt and pepper hair strode in, his arms full of sheet music. The room immediately quieted. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have exactly 3 weeks until opening night and a mountain of work to do," he announced without preamble. "For those who don't know me, I'm Professor Thomas Harrington, and I'll be directing our production of The Magic Flute." Sophia studied him with interest. He moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to being in charge, but there was something else there too. A tightness around his mouth, a tension in his shoulders. This was a man under pressure. "We'll begin with voice placement exercises to see what we're working with," Harrington continued, distributing sheet music. "And I must emphasize that while this is a community production, I expect commitment and dedication. Mozart deserves nothing less." As the warm-up exercises began, Sophia deliberately kept her voice modest, matching the volume and quality of those around her. Years of training had taught her precise control. Still, she couldn't help but close her eyes during certain passages, transported by the beauty of even these simple scales. When she opened them, she found Professor Harrington watching her with a slight furrow in his brow. She immediately dialed back her technique even further, adding a small waver to her voice. Over the next hour, the professor assigned choral parts based on each person's range and quality. When he came to Sophia, he asked her to sing a simple arpeggio. She complied, careful to make it pleasant but unremarkable. Harrington nodded. "Second soprano section, please. You have a nice tone, but watch your breathing. You're cutting phrases short." Sophia bit back a smile. She, who was famous for her breath control, being critiqued on breathing, but she nodded obediently and took her place with the other second sopranos. As the rehearsal continued, Sophia felt a growing warmth in her chest. The music was rough, certainly. Some participants struggled to read their parts, and the harmonies sometimes collapsed into near chaos. But underneath it all was a genuine love for what they were creating together. When the professor announced a 5-minute break, Lily bounded over to her. "You've definitely sung before," she said. "You're like the only one who didn't get completely lost during that last section." Sophia shrugged. "Mozart and I are old friends." "Well, thank goodness someone here knows what they're doing. Fair warning, Harrington's having a meltdown about the Queen of the Night aria. Our soloist got the flu and it's like the hardest piece in the whole opera." As if on cue, they overheard the professor on his phone, his voice tight with stress. "Yes, I understand it's a challenging piece. That's precisely why we need someone with your expertise." "No, 3 weeks is not—" He stopped, staring at his phone, then shoved it in his pocket with an expression of pure frustration. "Another rejection," Lily whispered. "That's the third one this week." Sophia's heart beat faster. The Queen of the Night aria, Der Hölle Rache, was her signature piece, the one that had launched her international career when she performed it at just 23 years old. Critics had called her interpretation definitive. She could sing it in her sleep. For a brief, wild moment, she considered stepping forward, offering to help. But no, that would mean revealing herself, and she wasn't ready for her peaceful anonymity to end. Not yet. As rehearsal resumed, Sophia threw herself into the choral parts, finding comfort in blending her voice with others. She could be part of this without being the star. For now, that was enough. Walking home in the golden evening light, Sophia hummed quietly to herself. Not Mozart this time, but the Queen's famous aria with its thrilling high Fs and dramatic coloratura passages. For the first time in months, she felt the familiar tingle of excitement about music again. Something told her this small-town production might bring unexpected challenges and joys. What Sophia couldn't know yet was just how soon her carefully constructed ordinary life would begin to unravel, or that the demanding Professor Harrington would be the one to pull the first thread. Sophia arrived early for the second rehearsal, finding the music room empty except for Professor Harrington, who sat at the piano with sheet music spread before him. His fingers moved over the keys, playing the complex opening notes of the Queen of the Night aria. He stopped abruptly, running a hand through his hair with a sigh that filled the quiet room. "Trouble with the music?" Sophia asked, immediately regretting drawing attention to herself. Harrington looked up, momentarily confused, then recognized her. "A second soprano. Sophia, right?" She nodded, pleased he remembered her name. "Not trouble with the music," he said, shuffling papers. "Trouble finding someone who can actually sing it properly. Do you know this piece?" He played a few more notes of the famous aria. Sophia's heart quickened. "The Queen of the Night, Der Hölle Rache. Yes, I know it. Then you know it requires exceptional technical skill. The coloratura passages alone." He trailed off, looking tired. "Our soloist is still sick, and our backup just took a job out of state. 3 weeks until opening night and no queen." Sophia shifted her bag to her other shoulder, fighting the urge to tell him she could sing it perfectly. Instead, she asked, "Is there anyone in the music department who could step in?" "I've asked everyone with the remotest possibility," he said. "Our best vocal student graduated last semester." He rubbed his eyes. "Anyway, why am I burdening you with this? You came to sing in the chorus, not listen to my production problems." Other chorus members began filtering in, and Sophia found a seat beside Lily, who arrived with her hair now tipped in purple instead of blue. "You're here early," Lily whispered as Harrington called the rehearsal to order. "Just eager, I guess," Sophia replied. In truth, she'd barely slept, the familiar melodies of Mozart's masterpiece running through her mind all night. The rehearsal began with a stumbling run-through of the chorus parts. Sophia could see Harrington's growing frustration as people missed entrances and fumbled notes. No, he finally interrupted, his voice sharp. "The tempo isn't optional, people. And tenors, you're consistently flat on the high A." He demonstrated the correct pitch, his own voice surprisingly strong, again from measure 24. Throughout the evening, Sophia watched Harrington closely. Despite his obvious frustration, she recognized something in him, genuine passion for the music and a refusal to settle for mediocrity. It reminded her of certain conductors she'd worked with, the ones who pushed her toward excellence rather than mere competence. Near the end of rehearsal, Harrington made an announcement. "As some of you know, we're still without our Queen of the Night. I've reached out to professional contacts, but on a community college budget." He spread his hands in a helpless gesture. "If anyone knows someone with the vocal range and technical ability, please let me know immediately." A heavy silence fell over the room. Sophia felt her pulse quicken, a familiar pre-performance flutter in her stomach. Before she could think better of it, her hand drifted upward. Harrington's eyes locked onto her raised hand, his expression shifting from hope to skepticism in an instant. "Yes, Sophia? I might be able to try it," she said, her voice quiet but steady. A few chorus members exchanged glances. Harrington's eyebrows rose slightly. "You have experience with coloratura soprano roles?" he asked, his tone making it clear he doubted it. "I've sung some difficult pieces before," she replied vaguely. Harrington studied her for a long moment. Sophia knew what he was seeing. Plain clothes, no makeup, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Nothing about her current appearance suggested a woman capable of one of opera's most demanding areas. "The Queen of the Night requires extraordinary vocal range," he explained as if talking to a child. "The aria has 2 high Fs above high C. Most trained sopranos struggle with it." Sophia nodded, maintaining her composure. "I understand. Perhaps." Harrington seemed to be searching for a diplomatic way to decline her offer. "Perhaps you could try something simpler first. We do need someone for Papagena. The vocal requirements are much more accessible." Sophia felt a flicker of amusement. 6 months ago, opera houses across Europe had been battling to book her for this very role, and now she was being gently steered toward a minor part. "Of course," she said politely. "Whatever helps the production." Lily nudged her as they were packing up to leave. "You sing coloratura?" she whispered, impressed. Sophia shrugged. "I've had some training. Probably not enough for this. Still, it took guts to volunteer. Harrington can be pretty intimidating," Sophia smiled. After facing opening nights at La Scala with critics from across Europe in attendance, one community college professor hardly registered on her scale of intimidating experiences. As the weeks stretched on, the chorus improved, but the problem of the Queen remained unsolved. Sophia continued to blend in, careful not to show too much of her skill, yet unable to completely hide her perfect pitch and innate musicality. She noticed Harrington watching her more frequently, his expression thoughtful. During their 4th rehearsal, disaster struck. The woman who had agreed to sing Papagena came down with laryngitis, and another supporting soprano missed rehearsal due to car trouble. "Is the universe conspiring against this production?" Harrington muttered loudly enough for everyone to hear. He looked around the room desperately. "We need to hear the full ensemble with at least placeholder vocals for these solo parts." His eyes settled on Sophia. "Sophia, you mentioned you might be able to handle some solo work. Can you sight read this passage as Pamina?" Sophia nodded, accepting the sheet music he thrust toward her. She recognized it immediately. Pamina's lament, "Ach, ich fühl's," one of the opera's most poignant moments. The piece required subtle emotion more than technical fireworks, but still demanded excellent breath control and phrasing. "From measure 9, Harrington said, moving to the piano. Sophia took a deep breath and began to sing, deliberately keeping her voice beautiful but restrained. Still, the pure, clear notes filled the room, and she saw several chorus members turn to look at her with surprise. When she finished, there was a moment of silence before Harrington said, "Good. Very good, actually. Your German pronunciation is excellent." He looked at her curiously. "Where did you study?" "Here and there," Sophia replied vaguely. "I picked things up along the way." "Well, you've picked up some solid technique. I'd like you to cover for Pamina until Andrea returns." After rehearsal, Harrington asked Sophia to stay behind. Her stomach tightened. Had she revealed too much of her ability? "Your sight reading tonight was impressive," he said, gathering his scores. "Thank you. I'm curious why you didn't mention your training when you first volunteered." Sophia chose her words carefully. "I didn't want to make claims I couldn't back up." Harrington studied her. His eyes narrowed slightly. "You handle Mozart with unusual familiarity for a casual singer." She smiled. "Mozart has always been a favorite." "Well, given your performance tonight, I'm reconsidering your offer to attempt the Queen's aria." Sophia felt a rush of conflicting emotions. Part of her longed to sing the piece that had defined so much of her career. Another part feared the inevitable recognition that would follow. "Are you sure?" she asked. "As you said, it's extraordinarily difficult." "Yes, and we're running out of options." He handed her the score. "Look this over. Tomorrow come half an hour early and we'll see what you can do with it." "No pressure, I'm not expecting perfection." Sophia almost laughed at this. The last time she had performed this aria at the Royal Opera House, the Times had called her interpretation as close to perfection as mortals can achieve. "I'll do my best," she said simply. That night in her apartment, Sophia paced, score in hand, torn by indecision. She could deliberately perform poorly tomorrow, securing her continued anonymity, or she could sing as she was capable of singing, which would inevitably lead to questions she wasn't ready to answer. She ran through the aria once, her voice soaring effortlessly to the high F, filling her small apartment with sound that belonged in grand concert halls. The familiar notes brought a rush of memories, the weight of elaborate costumes, the heat of stage lights, the breathless moment before an audience erupted in applause, but also the exhaustion, the loneliness of hotel rooms, the constant pressure to be better than last time. Sophia set the score down. Tomorrow she would find a middle path, sing well enough to help the production, but not so well as to give herself away completely. For now she was content being just Sophia who loves music, not Sophia Rinaldi, the celebrated soprano who had mysteriously vanished from the world stage. The next morning, Sophia arrived at the music building to find Harrington already at the piano. playing through the complex orchestration of Der Hülle Rache. He looked up when she entered, his expression guarded. "You've had a chance to review the piece?" he asked. Sophia nodded, setting her bag down and moving to stand beside the piano. "Yes, I'm familiar with it. We'll take it slowly," he said, his tone suggesting he was preparing for disappointment. "The introduction first, then we can work through the difficult passages bit by bit." Sophia took a deep breath as Harrington began to play the dramatic opening. This was the moment of truth. How much of herself was she willing to reveal? As the introduction ended and her entrance approached, Sophia made her decision. She would give him just a glimpse of what she could really do. Enough to secure the role, but not enough to completely blow her cover. After all, the music deserved nothing less. She opened her mouth and began to sing. Sophia sang the opening phrases of the Queen of the Night's aria with deliberate restraint, allowing a hint of her true ability to shine through while holding back her full power. She navigated the first coloratura passage with practiced ease, though she intentionally made one small slip on a trill, enough to seem like a talented amateur rather than a world-class professional. Harrington's fingers faltered on the keys. He looked up at her with undisguised surprise, then quickly recovered and continued playing. As they approached the aria's most challenging section, Sophia faced a split-second decision. The iconic high F passages were impossible to fake. You either hit those stratospheric notes or you didn't. She chose to sing them correctly, but with slightly less power than she would use on stage. When she finished, the small room fell silent. Sophia could hear her own heartbeat in the stillness. Harrington stared at her, his hands hovering above the piano keys. That was... He seemed at a loss for words. Unexpected. Sophia gave a small, self-conscious smile. "Was it okay? Okay?" He shook his head in disbelief. "Where did you learn to sing like that?" "Those high Fs were nearly perfect," she shrugged. "I've had some good teachers." "Some good teachers," he repeated, studying her with new intensity. "You said you've picked things up here and there. That's quite an understatement, isn't it?" "I've been fortunate," Sophia replied, purposely vague. Harrington ran a hand through his hair, his initial shock giving way to excitement. "Well, whatever your background, this changes everything. We might actually pull this production off." Over the next week, Sophia walked a precarious line. During rehearsals, she sang well enough to fulfill the role's demands, but introduced occasional small flaws to maintain her cover. Each time she held back, it felt like wearing shoes a size too small, uncomfortable and restrictive. Harrington, meanwhile, grew increasingly curious. Sophia often caught him watching her with a puzzled expression, as if trying to solve a complex equation. After one particularly good rehearsal, he approached her as she was gathering her things. "Your breath control is remarkable," he said without preamble. "Most singers take years to develop that kind of support." "Thank you," Sophia replied, busying herself with her bag to avoid his searching gaze. "You must have had classical training." "Conservatory?" "No, nothing that formal." "Private instruction, then?" "Who was your voice teacher?" Sophia hesitated. Mentioning any of her actual teachers, renowned vocal coaches from Milan to New York, would immediately give her away to anyone with knowledge of the opera world. "An old Italian woman in my hometown," she lied. "She was quite strict." Harrington looked skeptical. "This mysterious Italian teacher taught you perfect German diction as well?" "I picked up languages easily as a child," Sophia said, which was at least true. Before he could press further, Lily bounded over, saving Sophia from the uncomfortable interrogation. "Sorry to interrupt, Professor, but the costume department needs your opinion on the Queen's headdress." As Harrington walked away, Lily whispered to Sophia, "People can't stop talking about your singing. Antonio from the tenor section recorded a bit of your rehearsal on his phone and showed it to his roommate who's a music major. Now half the department wants to come hear you." Sophia felt a chill. "He recorded me?" "Without asking?" "Just a few seconds. He was really impressed." Lily tilted her head, studying Sophia's reaction. "Is something wrong?" "No, I don't like being recorded without permission." "I'll tell him to delete it," Lily promised. "Though I don't see what the big deal is. You should be proud. Everyone says you're amazing." That evening, Sophia returned to her apartment feeling uneasy. Her carefully constructed anonymity was beginning to crack. She made herself tea and sat by the window, watching twilight settle over the small town that had become her refuge. Perhaps it was time to move on. She could easily disappear again, find another quiet town where no one knew her name or her voice. But the thought of abandoning the production now, when they were counting on her, didn't sit right. And deeper than that, Sophia had to admit a truth to herself. She missed performing. These past few weeks had awakened something she'd been trying to suppress, the pure joy of bringing music to life. The next morning, she arrived at rehearsal to find the atmosphere charged with excitement. More chairs had been set up at the back of the room, occupied by faces she didn't recognize. Students from the music department, she guessed, come to hear the mystery soprano. Harrington approached her immediately. "I hope you don't mind the audience. Word has spread about our remarkable queen of the night." Sophia forced a smile. "It's fine. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce you to someone." He gestured toward an elegant older woman standing near the piano. "This is Dr. Patricia Winters, head of our music department and an accomplished soprano in her day." Sophia shook the woman's hand, feeling a flutter of panic. Dr. Winters had a sharp, appraising look that reminded Sophia of competition judges from her early career. "Professor Harrington has been singing your praises," Dr. Winters said. "I was skeptical until I heard you might attempt the Queen's aria. Few sopranos can handle those high Fs with any degree of proficiency." "I'm still learning," Sophia said modestly. Dr. Winters smiled. "Aren't we all? I look forward to hearing you." The rehearsal began with chorus work, but Sophia could feel anticipation building in the room. When Harrington finally turned to her and said, "Shall we try the Queen's aria?" A hush fell over the assembled singers and spectators. Sophia stepped forward, her heart racing. With more eyes watching, maintaining her partial disguise would be even harder, but backing down now would only raise more questions. As Harrington played the dramatic opening chords, Sophia closed her eyes briefly, centering herself as she had done countless times before performances. When she began to sing, she allowed herself more freedom than before, though still not her full capacity. The aria progressed, each note crystal clear, each run executed with precision. When she reached the famous high F passage, she hit the notes perfectly, though with slightly less power and drama than she would have used on a professional stage. She finished to stunned silence, followed by spontaneous applause from the chorus and visitors. Sophia blushed, unused to this kind of informal appreciation after years of formal curtain calls. Dr. Winters approached, her expression thoughtful. "Remarkable technique. Your mysterious Italian teacher must have been extraordinary." "Indeed." Something in her tone made Sophia wonder if the department head suspected there was more to the story. "Thank you," Sophia said simply. Harrington looked triumphant. "Didn't I tell you, Patricia? A hidden gem right here in Millfield." Dr. Winters nodded slowly. "Indeed, though I wonder why such a gem would be hidden at all." She gave Sophia a penetrating look before turning back to Harrington. "Your production is in good hands, Thomas. I'll be sure to attend opening night." As word spread about the community college's exceptional Queen of the Night, more visitors appeared at rehearsals. Sophia noticed Harrington's attitude toward her shifting from skepticism to respect, though his curiosity about her background only intensified. After one rehearsal, he asked her to stay behind again. "The orchestra will join us next week," he said, organizing his scores. "I wanted to warn you. It's quite different singing with full orchestral accompaniment versus piano." Sophia nodded, fighting a smile. She had sung with some of the world's finest orchestras, but of course Harrington couldn't know that. "I think I'll manage," she said. He studied her for a long moment. "You know, I've been teaching voice for 15 years. I've worked with hundreds of students, some with considerable talent," he paused. "But I've never encountered someone like you, someone with obvious professional caliber technique who claims to have picked it up from an old Italian woman." Sophia felt heat rise to her cheeks. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm simply wondering why someone with your gifts would be hiding in a small-town community production instead of pursuing a serious career." His tone softened. "Whatever your reasons, I'm grateful you're here. You've saved this production." Sophia felt a surprising lump in her throat. "Thank you for the opportunity." As she turned to leave, Harrington added, "One more thing. The local paper wants to do a feature on our production. They're particularly interested in interviewing our Queen of the Night." Sophia froze. "I'd rather not." Stage fright extends to interviews, I'm afraid. He looked disappointed but nodded. I understand. I'll tell them our mysterious soprano prefers to let her voice speak for itself. Walking home that evening, Sophia realized she was approaching a crossroads. The quiet life she had built in Millfield was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. Sooner or later someone would recognize her. Perhaps not in this small town, but certainly if word of her performance spread to larger musical circles. Yet for the first time in years, she felt truly alive when she sang. These past weeks had reminded her of why she fell in love with opera in the first place, before fame and expectations had dulled the joy. As she reached her apartment, Sophia made a decision. She would complete this production, giving her best performance for the small community that had unwittingly offered her sanctuary. After that, she would need to decide whether to disappear again or to finally step back into the spotlight on her own terms. What she didn't realize was that the decision might be taken out of her hands sooner than she expected. The day of the dress. Rehearsal arrived with a burst of unexpected drama. Sophia was reviewing her score in the green room when she heard raised voices from the hallway. She recognized Harrington's distinctive tone, tense with frustration. What do you mean she's not coming? He demanded. A quiet response followed, too low for Sophia to hear. 3 hours before dress rehearsal? This is completely unprofessional. Sophia stepped into the hallway to find Harrington arguing with the stage manager, a harried-looking student with clipboard in hand. What's happened? She asked. Harrington turned to her, his face flushed with anger. Our Pamina has apparently accepted a last-minute offer to sing with the State Symphony tonight. No notice, no understudy prepared. Can't someone from the chorus step in? Sophia suggested. For some roles, perhaps. But Pamina has that crucial third-act aria. He rubbed his temples. We've worked for weeks and now this. An idea formed in Sophia's mind. Dangerous yet practical. I could do it. Harrington stared at her. You? But you're our queen of the night. The roles never appear on stage together, Sophia pointed out. I know Pamina's part. In truth, she had performed both roles professionally, though years apart. That's unprecedented, Harrington said, but she could see him considering it. The vocal styles are completely different. The queen is all fire and technical fireworks, while Pamina requires subtle emotional depth and lyrical expression. Sophia smiled slightly. I think I can manage the contrast. You'd need to change costumes quickly between scenes. I've done quick changes before. Harrington studied her for a long moment. This is highly unorthodox, then he sighed. But we have little choice at this point. Let's try Pamina's aria now to be certain. In the empty auditorium, Sophia stood center stage while Harrington played the piano introduction to Ach, ich fühl's, Pamina's heartbreaking lament. This time, she allowed herself to sing with the emotional depth the piece deserved, her voice carrying the character's profound sadness with a purity that filled the space. When she finished, Harrington was looking at her strangely. You've performed this before, haven't you? Not just casually, but on stage. Sophia hesitated, then nodded once. Yes. Professionally? Another pause. Yes, he closed the piano lid slowly. I think we need to talk, Sophia. Not now, we have a dress rehearsal to survive. But afterward, I'd appreciate some honesty. The dress rehearsal was a frantic affair, with Sophia rushing between costume changes, transforming from the vengeful queen to the pure-hearted Pamina and back again. The student orchestra struggled with Mozart's complex score, and the chorus missed several entrances. But to everyone's amazement, the production began to take shape. Afterward, as the exhausted cast dispersed, Harrington approached Sophia. My office? He suggested. She nodded, following him down the quiet hallway to a small, cluttered room lined with music books and old recordings. I'd offer you tea, but I think we're beyond that, he said, gesturing for her to sit. Who are you really, Sophia? She looked down at her hands. Just someone who loves music. No. His voice was firm but not unkind. You're not just anything. No one sings Mozart that way without years of professional training and experience. Your technique, your understanding of the roles, your perfect diction in multiple languages. He leaned forward. Level with me, please. Sophia looked up at him, seeing not the demanding perfectionist from their first meeting, but a fellow musician seeking truth. You're right, she said quietly. I have performed professionally. Opera, She nodded. Major houses? Another nod. Harrington ran a hand through his hair. I don't understand. Why hide it? Why come to a small-town community college production? Sophia sighed. It's complicated. I needed a break. From the pressure, the constant travel, the endless expectations to be perfect every single night. So you just walked away? From a professional opera career? 6 months ago, after I collapsed backstage in Vienna. The truth felt strangely freeing after months of careful evasion. My doctor said it was exhaustion, but it was more than that. I had lost the joy in music. Harrington was silent for a moment, absorbing this. And you found it here? In our little production? Sophia smiled softly. I started to. Being part of something without the weight of everyone's expectations. It reminded me why I began singing in the first place. I see. He hesitated. I won't press you for a name if you don't want to share it. But I'm curious, what level were you performing at? Regional opera? National? Sophia looked him directly in the eyes. International. Harrington's expression shifted as realization began to dawn. Wait, 6 months ago, Vienna. His eyes widened. The Sophia Rinaldi cancellations. The mysterious disappearance that had the opera world buzzing. He stared at her. That's you, isn't it? You're Sophia Rinaldi. She didn't deny it. He fell back in his chair. I'm sitting across from Sophia Rinaldi, the Sophia Rinaldi, the definitive queen of the night of our generation. He gave a slightly hysterical laugh. And I tried to explain coloratura technique to you. Despite herself, Sophia laughed too. You weren't wrong about anything you said. Good Lord, he muttered. I've been directing the most celebrated soprano in the world and didn't even know it. Not the most celebrated, she corrected him. There are many fine sopranos. You're being modest. I have your La Scala recording. I've used it in my advanced vocal classes as an example of perfect coloratura technique. He shook his head in disbelief. My students won't believe this. Sophia's smile faded. I'd prefer they didn't know. At least not until after the performance. Harrington studied her. You really want to remain anonymous, but why? Our little production could become the talk of the classical music world. Tickets would sell out instantly. That's exactly what I'm trying to avoid, Sophia said. The moment people know who I am, everything changes. It becomes about me, my reputation, my career, not about the music we've all worked so hard to create together. Harrington was quiet for a moment, considering. I respect that. But may I make a suggestion? Of course. For our final performance tomorrow night, would you consider singing as yourself? Not holding back, not playing a role within a role. Just you, Sophia Rinaldi, giving these students in this community the gift of hearing what you're truly capable of. Sophia felt a flutter of both fear and excitement at the thought. I don't know. No publicity beforehand, Harrington promised. No announcements. Just you, singing as you would at the Metropolitan Opera or La Scala. Our musicians and audience may never again have the opportunity to experience something like that. Sophia looked down, conflicted. Part of her longed to unleash her voice fully after months of restraint, to reconnect with the artist she had been before exhaustion and pressure had driven her into hiding. I'll think about it, she finally said. That's all I ask. Harrington stood. Your secret is safe with me, at least until tomorrow night. As Sophia walked home under a sky full of stars, she felt strangely light, as if a burden had been lifted. Someone knew her true identity, yet the world hadn't come crashing down. Harrington had seen her as she really was, not just Sophia Rinaldi, the celebrated diva, but Sophia who loved music and had temporarily lost her way. Tomorrow night would bring a choice: continue the partial disguise she had maintained for weeks, or embrace her true voice again, with all the consequences that might follow. Back in her apartment, Sophia opened a drawer and removed a small velvet pouch. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a single pearl pendant, a gift from her first voice teacher after her professional debut. She hadn't worn it since leaving Vienna, but now she held it to the light, remembering the inscription on the back. Sing with your heart, not just your voice. Perhaps it was time to do both again. Opening night arrived with the buzzing energy that accompanies any live performance, professional or amateur. Sophia stood backstage, heart racing as she listened to the student orchestra warming up. She wore the elaborate Queen of the Night costume, a midnight blue gown covered in silver stars, with a crescent moon headdress that the costume department had proudly created on their limited budget. Nervous? Lily appeared beside her, dressed in her chorus robes. Sophia smiled. Always. Every performance, no matter how many times I've done it. You've done this a lot, haven't you? Lily asked, her voice dropping to a whisper. More than you've let on. Sophia looked at her young friend, wondering how much Harrington had revealed. What makes you say that? Little things. The way you always know exactly where to stand on stage without being told. How you never seem stressed about remembering your part. The fact that you're the only one who didn't panic when the orchestra came in too early during rehearsal. Lily shrugged. Plus, I Googled soprano coloratura queen of the night last night and found some interesting videos. Sophia felt her cheeks grow warm. Don't worry, I haven't told anyone, but are you really her, Sophia Rinaldi? Before Sophia could answer, Harrington appeared, looking surprisingly calm for a director on opening night. Places in 5 minutes, he announced, then turned to Sophia. Have you decided? About tonight's performance? Sophia touched the pearl pendant at her throat. She had put it on that morning after months of keeping it tucked away. Yes, and? His eyes were hopeful. For the first act I'll perform as I have been, she said. But for the Queen's second aria in Act 2? She took a deep breath. No more hiding. Harrington's face broke into a wide smile. Our musicians won't know what hit them. Neither will the audience, Lily added with a grin, confirming she had indeed recognized Sophia's true identity. The first act went smoothly, with only minor opening night stumbles from the chorus and orchestra. Sophia performed her first aria as the Queen, with the same controlled technique she had used in rehearsals. Impressive, but intentionally restrained. During the intermission, a strange calm settled over her. For 6 months, she had been running from the very thing that had defined her life. Tonight, she would stop running. In her dressing room, Sophia removed the elaborate makeup she had applied for the first act and started fresh. This time, she highlighted her features as she would for a professional performance, accentuating her eyes and applying the vivid red lipstick that had been her signature on stage. She let down her hair from its severe style, allowing it to frame her face as it did in all her publicity photos. Finally, she adjusted her costume to sit perfectly on her shoulders. A small change, but one that transformed her posture into that of a world-class performer, rather than a community college volunteer. A knock came at her door. 5 minutes, Miss Sophia, called the student stage manager. Sophia took one last look in the mirror. The woman looking back was no longer Sophia who loves music. She was Sophia Rinaldi, ready to reclaim her voice and her joy in using it. The second act began. Sophia stood in the wings, listening as the orchestra played the introduction to scenes that would lead to her entrance. Despite the student musicians' limited experience, Mozart's genius shone through their efforts, and Sophia felt the familiar tingle of anticipation that preceded every performance. When her cue came, she stepped onto the stage with a presence she had deliberately subdued until now. The audience, mostly friends and family of the cast plus a handful of music students, fell silent as she took her position. The first notes of Der Hölle Rache filled the auditorium, and Sophia opened her mouth to sing. This time, there was no holding back, no manufactured flaws, no restraint. Her voice soared with all the power, precision, and passion that had made her famous on the world's greatest stages. The coloratura passages flowed from her with effortless brilliance. When she reached the famous high F section, her voice pierced the air like a perfectly aimed arrow, clear and true and breathtaking. Every note was imbued with the character's fury and determination. Every phrase shaped with the artistry that comes from years of dedicated study and performance. Sophia could see the orchestra players' eyes widening, some nearly missing their entrances as they realized what was happening. In the pit, Harrington conducted with tears streaming unashamedly down his face. When the aria ended, there was a moment of stunned silence before the audience erupted in wild applause. People rose to their feet, some calling "Brava," without even knowing the traditional accolade for a female opera singer. Sophia took a small bow, then continued with the scene, maintaining the same level of artistry throughout. By the time the final curtain fell, the audience was on its feet again, their applause thunderous in the small college auditorium. During curtain calls, Sophia received a standing ovation that continued long after the rest of the cast had taken their bows. Harrington finally stepped forward, raising his hands for quiet. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice thick with emotion, "we have been incredibly privileged tonight. For those who don't know, we have been graced with the presence of one of the world's greatest living sopranos." He turned to Sophia. "Would you like to introduce yourself properly?" Sophia stepped forward, suddenly shy despite years of facing audiences many times this size. "My name is Sophia Rinaldi," she said simply. "And I want to thank you all for helping me remember why I fell in love with singing in the first place." The news spread quickly through the small town. By the next morning, the local paper had run a front-page story. World-famous opera star found in Millfield community production. Larger publications picked up the story, and soon Sophia's phone was ringing with calls from her former agent, opera house directors, and music journalists eager for the scoop on her mysterious disappearance and unexpected return. 2 weeks after the production ended, Sophia sat in Harrington's office, sipping tea and considering the stack of offers that had arrived since her identity was revealed. "La Scala wants me back for a gala next month," she said, flipping through the papers. "And the Met is offering a full-season contract." Harrington leaned back in his chair. "Will you accept?" Sophia set down the offers. "Not all of them. Not like before." "What will you do differently?" "Set boundaries. Choose projects that truly inspire me, not just prestigious ones, and—" She hesitated. "I'd like to teach." Harrington raised his eyebrows. "Teach?" "Working with your students, seeing their enthusiasm. It reminded me of my early days when music was pure joy rather than constant pressure." She smiled. "Dr. Winters mentioned your department might be interested in guest master classes." "Interested?" "We'd be ecstatic," Harrington laughed, "though I'd have to get over the embarrassment of having tried to explain vocal technique to Sophia Rinaldi." "You weren't wrong about anything you taught," Sophia said warmly. "Sometimes we all need reminders of the fundamentals." The following fall, Sophia returned to Millfield between performances at major opera houses around the world. This time she came openly as herself, to teach a series of master classes at the community college. The music building had been renamed the Sophia Rinaldi Music Hall, much to her embarrassment and Harrington's delight. Applications to the music program had doubled, with students drawn by the possibility of studying with guest faculty of her caliber. On her first day, Sophia found Lily waiting outside the classroom, now a sophomore with ambitions of music education. "I still can't believe you're really back," Lily said, falling into step beside her. "We all figured once you returned to the big stages we'd never see you again." Sophia smiled, touching the pearl pendant she now wore for every performance and teaching session. "The big stages are wonderful, but they're not everything. Sometimes the most important music happens in the smallest spaces." As she entered the classroom and faced her eager students, Sophia felt a sense of peace that had eluded her for years. She had found her balance, performing on her own terms while sharing her knowledge with the next generation. "Good morning," she said to the class. "My name is Sophia Rinaldi, and today we're going to talk about finding your true voice, both the one you share with the world and the one that reminds you why you sing in the first place."